We have started recording
Welcome to the Pondering Pandas.
a podcast where we ponder about the confusing modern world and try to make sense of it all. We are your host. My name is Jayden.
My name is Ryan.
Hi Ryan.
Hi.
Is this
so,
is this attracting?
all right. So, what's the topic today?
Laws of attraction? Whatever that means.
Yay! You're
Whatever
not
that
excited?
means.
You're not excited?
It's I'm excited. I'm excited to explore some of these things that you want to cover. So let's have some fun.
Sounds like you are not familiar with the concept like this, or
I am familiar with it. It's just that you still gotta do what you gotta do to get what you want.
yeah. But sometimes, do you want some positive energy to help you, or do you do any of the tarot cards or like readings to understand what's the future and what's your fortune, something like this?
I have done tarot cards actually. There has been a friend who did a few readings for me
Oh,
when
really?
things were a little bit uncertain to allow for some guidance, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't 100% believe in it, but I think it is good to take as reference. And if
Mm-hmm.
it's something that you want to use, such as tarot cards or fortune telling or anything like that, to help you make a decision that you've been kind of going
Mm-hmm.
back and forth with, then yeah, I mean it's useful.
That sounds great. So it sounds like we're on the same team. Because
What else is
I
new?
I mean, I don't fully believe that, but I find guidance from time to time as well, right? I'm trying to
Mm,
give myself more confidence or more faith. I think that's the purpose for me.
mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I feel like when I'm having doubts, I kind of making my own decisions internally already. But I think I just need some additional, external validation or external push to help me to make certain decisions. So that's how I see those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that aligns with our topic today, law of attraction. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think for the audience that have no idea what that is, so I'm just coding on my like Google like research results. So the
Revolutionary.
yay, we find new tools. All right, so so based on Google AI overview, like
Wow.
you wow. The law of attraction is a philosophy suggesting that positive thoughts and actions attracts positive outcomes, while the negative thoughts and actions lead to negative results. And emphasizing the power of focusing on what you desire to manifest in your life. So, thoughts?
Yeah. I think it's very true. I th- I don't know. Here's my little dilemma though.
Uh-huh.
You can think about positively, but the evidence and the results that you have been provided over
Mm-hmm.
and over again
Mm-hmm.
that has been negative is really hard for some people to continually to have faith and believe
Mm-hmm.
in whatever it is that they're doing, right?
Uh-huh.
For instance, uh you know what? Very recent life example for myself would be finding a
All
job.
right. Ah, I see.
Finding a job,
Okay.
right? You'd
Uh-huh.
be like, okay, after, 80 applications and
Mm-hmm.
so many interviews, are you good enough? Or are like, why am I not getting through? And
Mm-hmm.
there's like so many different layers. It's like, okay, how are you answering the questions? Are you answering the questions clinically? Make
Mm-hmm.
sense
Mm-hmm.
to the question? What are you missing? What are they looking for? And then the other types of candidates that they have recruited for the interview, they might have more experience than you do. So therefore, you are not their first pick. So there's so
Mm-hmm.
many different layers towards this, but the only thing I could do is to continue to apply all of
Mm-hmm.
these applications,
Mm-hmm.
even though I have been rejected, went to interviews, and also said no. And, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you only need one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To have that, to be a
Fulfill your goal.
successful. Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that's like a lot of the things too, whether it's like entrepreneurship, whether it's business, whether you're finding an investor. If
Mm-hmm.
you just don't give up and and you continually to tweak the way that you're trying to deliver your pitch, the way that your presentation looks. Each
Yeah.
feedback, as long as people are giving you feedback, like please, like take
Mm-hmm.
them in and try to
Mm-hmm.
work on them and then apply them to your next round of whatever it is that you're trying to make. Then those so-called manifestations, those wishful thinkings and these actions will move you pace by pace towards closer to that, acceptance, that investment, that job, that um school that you wanted to go to. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
those things need work, right? But at the same
Yeah.
time, this negative thoughts of like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get in, but like if you're continuously trying to improve though, I feel like it's a little bit of a two-way battle for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard, but
It's so hard. I can definitely relate to that. So you saw my emotions while I'm,
you
in
have
those neg.
emotions.
I am. I am. Even I'm Asian. I do have. I do
we
have some.
we do not have emotions.
Yeah, we are cold-blooded robots.
Basically.
Yeah, so you saw my emotions, like you saw like how negative I can be and how defeating I can be. So I can definitely relate to like those things when you are facing the setbacks or things are not working as you expected. Especially like you don't know like what's going on and how things are going wrong and why it's not leading to the results you are designing for.
Mm-hmm.
I do have my, face being shaken from time to time. I feel like, is this a joke or is this a punishment? Or like, do I deserve all the results I have after I pour in all the efforts and everything?
Mm-hmm.
So those are my negative thoughts for sure. I think everyone have them. But it seems from your statement, you are still a believer. You're still trying and still trying to be positive. Right?
I think it's because I don't have another choice at the same
Uh huh.
time.
Uh huh.
And I think it's because I am faced with these circumstances in life where
Mm-hmm.
I do need a 9 to 5 job to be able to support myself and put food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to continuously apply to jobs, right? If I don't,
Mm-hmm.
like, I can't live off of loans forever. I don't know, like, I can't be useless and doing these things that don't have monetary returns is, in a way, like, yes, I believe in them, but it takes a lot more time to accumulate, right? Like, for example, this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, like right now, obviously we would like to have some sort of monetization, but at the same time, I think a lot of it is from just the love of doing it at the same
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to argue that for the love of doing it, you can only do it for so long if it
Yeah.
doesn't have any type
Yeah.
of rewards. I would be
That's fair.
lying if
Mm-hmm.
in the long run if I can't even make a dime off of this. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It it doesn't make sense. And I do love doing this. That's why we spend so much time and effort into this
Yeah.
and continuously polish and try to improve whatever feedback we get,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully continuously to do something that we love instead of dreading going to work to your 9 to 5 potentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these extra times, this thing that I'm doing, I could be, scrolling on TikTok instead or watch
Yeah,
an anime show, but instead I'm here talking about laws of attraction.
yeah, I I think that's fair. Sometimes I wonder like if that makes sense to just do this and just hoping things will like happen and to, like have some sort of results. But like rather am I lying to myself to believe this is actually going to be, working or something like this.
But here's the
So
thing though, if we
mm-hmm,
don't whatever project it is that you're doing, right?
mm-hmm,
You need to know that you're doing it to the best of your efforts, as
mm-hmm,
well as being able to implement the type of feedback you get when you do
mm-hmm,
receive feedback. Because then that product, that project, that podcast, that job application, that school application is like better each time you submit it
mm-hmm,
for review, for whatever it is, right? So
mm-hmm,
if we practice the correct way each
mm-hmm,
time,
mm-hmm,
then we're moving towards that direction, is how I kind of look at it.
mm-hmm.
And however long it's going to take, I think that part is an element of grit and an element of belief as well, which
Yeah,
I'm sure
exactly.
most Asians have, anyways. So,
Wow. Amazing. I don't know what to say actually. I thought you were a non-believer, but as you
what do you
describe
mean?
more, I mean it's like law of attraction, right? So I saw you a non-believer, but now I'm hearing this. I feel like you're a believer.
I don't believe it in a sense that people think that if you're just gonna think about it and you're just gonna
Oh
sit
yeah.
there and twiddle your thumbs and expect
Things will
things to
happen
happen because
naturally.
you're
Yeah,
positively
yeah.
thinking about it and vibing
Uh-huh.
about it, but you're not applying it, you are not actioning it, then obviously nothing is gonna happen. Like, if there's a fucking storm or a hurricane coming in and just sitting in the house and you're supposed to evacuate and all you're saying is God is gonna send me is gonna save me,
Oh yeah.
like, no, he's sent you like 5 rescue teams, 2 personal dogs to try to like sniff you out of this house. Like, what are you trying to expect God, this quote unquote God, to do? Like, send you a friggin' light from like above this cloud and like lift you off like a friggin' alien ship? Like, la, I'm saved. Like, no, like that is not real. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds more like adoption, right? Alien adoption, if that really happens.
Yeah, that's when God's here, like, no, you have to, like, yes, there's an element of belief, and when things are happening you need to grasp it, you need to continuously work on it, and honestly it's really hard to practice. You can preach about it all you want. There's been so many times I want to just give up. There's been so many
Yeah, me
times.
too. Me too. Oh my god,
Yeah,
it's
but
so
like
hard.
at the end of the day, I think it's just because we we want it to work out. So,
Uh-huh.
and I think there is also this cost benefit curve that you have invested so much time and
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
energy to it. It's like, oh, like we should continue this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of like turning around,
Mm-hmm.
because then it wouldn't be worth it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So you actually mentioned a really important misunderstanding people can commonly have is that law of attraction is like making the wishes and hope things will happen naturally. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where it attracts most of the hate from people. I feel like that's people would say, "Oh, that's wishful thinking and stuff like this." So I
Okay,
totally
hold on. Hold on. I there is there is something on social media.
sure,
Hold
sure. Go
on.
ahead, go ahead.
There's
Yeah,
something on social media recently that
yeah.
I've been seeing about manifestation.
Uh huh.
It doesn't really make sense to me. And if you
Yes, please.
understand it the way that they're explaining it, please explain it to me, because they're like, okay, If you want to be successful, if you want to be rich, if you want to like do XYZ, if you want to have like this version of your future self, you need to be able to practice what your future self is doing right now. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
okay, that's
Uh-huh.
fair. And then they go on about spending money like
Oh
as
yeah.
if your future self has it, but your current self don't have. And I'm just thinking like how does that make sense? Like if you don't have the money to like, hey, my future self can
Can you
just
borrow me some
randomly
money?
just go randomly buy a house or like a random Ferrari on a random Tuesday. And because of my future self, I'm imagining it to that's able to do that. My current self can't. Like, what? How does that happen? How
Yeah.
how
I
how
think
make it make sense? I don't get it.
I think that part is definitely not making sense, or they're raising like really bad examples regarding like spending money. That part kind of fucks up in a way.
Yeah.
But I think in the first part, it kind of makes sense.
The
But
habits part, the making the systems part of your life, the way that you should like wake up early, go to bed early,
yeah,
do
yeah.
things differently in your life, in your system of your life makes sense. But like
Hmm.
how you're spending the money to do XYZ to be successful, it mind boggles me. I do
Yeah,
not understand it. So
it's
please
crazy.
enlighten me.
Yeah, unless that there are some like shadow bankers, or money printers,
Where
Uh,
have they been all my life?
yeah, go find them. So I think that the idea makes sense in a way because I feel like, I heard a saying, or I just made this up.
Okay, king of quotes, let's go.
King of quotes. Okay, so people say like,
No, no, no. You said it, not people said it, is what you mean, right?
I'm not sure if people said it, but I think I heard something. Basically, if you want to know what's the most meaningful work or what kind of job you want to do, is to imagine like what we would do after you retire or after you have achieved all the financial freedom and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So something like you would be loving doing after all of this will
Yeah.
potentially be the thing you will be choosing now because that thing is unconditional. It's not related to like your current situation. You have to find a job to sustain. So that's more like a limited situation or the challenge you are trying to overcome. But that's not necessarily the meaning of life you're chasing for or the things you would be loving doing after retirement. So maybe
Okay.
running a practice or like having a career that you desire or to help people, that may be more, close to the definition regarding what you do even after you have the freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that part aligns. And I agree with the part that you want to behave like you already made it, because that's actually shifting your mentality into you are not too focusing on what you are lacking at the moment. Because people make decisions sometimes based on what they have in the short term. Regarding like, I don't have the money now and I'm facing this challenge and I'm living in certain conditions. It kind of limits their actions and they feel like that's their lifestyle. But those things
Okay.
can be, yeah,
Can you can we just do this exercise right now and
yeah,
just
yeah,
why don't you like ask me the question
uh
about,
huh,
and then let me just like fully immerse myself because I don't like that's the part I don't understand. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, of course. So, who you want to become, or what will be you interested to be doing after even you have the retirement or you have the freedom of the financial, freedom and everything. So, imagine that situation. What would be your ideal status,
What does status mean?
or
Like,
what's
what is
your
my ideal situation?
yeah,
Like, what do
what's
I
your
want to
ideal
do in
future
my
self?
what do I want to do in my daily life?
Yeah, just imagine you already got everything. So what's your purpose and what's your passion?
Okay, well, I think I'm gonna leave some things out. Okay, so I would like to still work out and exercise and be able to move
Mm-hmm.
every day and still be independent.
Yeah.
I don't want to really care about what's on the price tag of
Mm-hmm.
the everyday necessity stuff
Mm-hmm.
at minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to be able to go traveling at least, I don't know, 6 times of the year for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have a comfortable house to live
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
and be able to spend time do whatever it is I want to do, like going to shops and maybe help other people start their projects, be an angel investor,
Mm-hmm.
be a mentor of some sort.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I think those are kind of like the top high level ones.
Sounds great. Sounds you are, your ideal life is amazing. It's full of love and support and all the discovery you're trying to achieve, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's also a reflection to you can see the gaps you have from now to like your ideal situation. And this gap is when you start to think about like what's the important thing or the priority in your current life and what's the essential things you want to keep or what's the temporary things you want to have it for now but maybe you want to discard in the future. For example, you mentioned about like not worrying about the price tag and be able to enjoy your life. I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Just say, I'm just making this up. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. So say like you may need to worry about some price tag at the moment. You may spend
Right.
some time do some careful calculations to make sure that everything can make sense. But if you have this ideal image in your head, you know in the future that's not something you will be worrying about.
Mm-hmm.
You may not treat this as a long-term practice or sort of like the life mission you want to keep. You'll be shifting your mental status to think, oh, this is some temporary like solutions or something I need to learn now to overcome this challenge so I don't have to worry about in the future. So I treat this a temporary measure for myself. Does it make
I
sense?
see.
So
So it is this temporary challenge that I'm currently having to have to consistently look at the prices of groceries that I have
yeah.
to. I'm like, okay, like this one's expensive. Like, what is the alternative thing that I can still be healthy and still not break my bank, kind of
Hmm.
thing?
Yeah.
Or I have to think thrice to whether or not I'm gonna go out for food
Yeah,
by
yeah, yeah.
myself or with friends or even I have lots of food in my fridge I don't want to cook and I just really want to order takeout but like my bank says no but like I could order it but that's just really irresponsible of me like those are the
Uh-huh.
frictions that I'm currently having
Yeah, those are
so
unnecessary. If you think
excuse
about
me.
this, because you actually mentioned something really important. It's regarding like when you are focusing on those challenges, it
Mm-hmm.
tend to consume a lot of your mental energy.
Yes.
So as you said, you spend a lot of time thinking about like those details regarding how can you do better and how can you overcome this, and you blame yourself for not being able to cope with them or be a better person or solutions. But if you switch your mind to realize that's not something you are looking for in the future, you don't
Okay.
want to be a saver for your life. You want to live comfortably. You want to
Spend irresponsibly.
spend irresponsibly if you can afford it. Yeah, of
Okay.
course. So if you have really believing that, it,
Uh-huh.
it becomes to your belief, right? If you really believe in that, you will actually switch your mentality. You will just realize like I don't have to worry too much about those things, techniques too much, because I just want to make sure I can pass through those challenge days for like the next a few months or days or even years. But it's not your life mission or it's not your priority that you want to improve over time. So it saves your mental energy to something more important. To be like, oh, I want to prioritize those things because after those challenges passes, I still want to be a helper. I still want to be a mentor. I still want to be a communicator. So maybe naturally you will spend more time on communication, on improving your skill in those situations. So for me, I feel like it's more like a methodology or like a mental practice to help me to understand what's the most important things for me, and for me to understand what's temporary and what's more like long-term goal for me, so I can just start to understand that which things is more important, and I shouldn't really waste too much of my time in something that's not going to bother me in the long run, even though those may be the most pressing things at the moment.
So how
I
does
yeah.
so how does okay, so let's just keep money, for example. Let's
Yeah.
just do the money part aspect right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this whole friction thing of like me looking at groceries and all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
jazz
yeah. Mhm.
is, am I supposed to just not think about it when I have an urge to like go out and get a boba tea, and then
Mhm.
I want have an urge to get takeout or just go to have a restaurant and eat, and just not don't think about it and just go spend the money and do it because
Mhm.
it's taking a lot of mental energy or mental
It's
capacity, and just give in to this craving. Do you know what I mean? Is that what you're trying to say? And then use the mental energy that is supposed to, instead of spending that currency of energy, of mental energy, of focus, whatever it is you want to call it, to, I don't know, the course that I'm supposed to be taking that's, towards my goal. It's on
uh-huh.
applying for jobs that's supposed to get me the job.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
It's actually not really. So, how do I put it? So, I think the point here I want to emphasize here is that usually the thing that consumes most of your mental energy is about anxieties and the worries about the future. It's about like you want to make sense of your future based on your current conditions. So our brains are like very logical like machine, and we're trying to make predictions all the time, right?
Right.
But it has limitations. It doesn't see the future. It doesn't naturally see like how you can become someone based on your current trajectory, because it's like we're talking about a lot of things could happen in your life. You can meet someone, you can face some luck, or you can have some life-changing events anytime. And so many people have a new direction because something happened unexpectedly, and you never know, right? So I do believe our brain is a tool based on our survival mode. So it was really alerting us regarding all the risk and what's all the limitations and what's the the fear we may face for the future. It's
Mm-hmm.
really helpful, but it doesn't always right. It maybe it's 80% right, maybe it's 70% or even 90, but there's at least 10% you can never predict. And this is when you cannot only rely on the rationality or your logical thinking. You will put too much mental energy into worrying that maybe 99% things were not happening. So there's a saying from Alan Watts. Do you know this person?
No.
He's like one of the motivational figure. So
Okay.
one thing he speak about like choice is about when people are making decisions and make a choice. He's saying like when you are making a choice, people tend to ask themselves regarding, am I thinking this through? Am I including all the factors that influencing this decision making, and am I choosing the best path? Am I,
Mm-hmm.
making the best out of the things I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he said when you look deeper, when you really look deeper, it's impossible for you to gather all the factors. It's impossible for you to get all the evidence. You essentially you always make decisions based on the limited information you have, and you can never tell you're right or wrong because you cannot have the alternative. You can only imagine. And in the end, it doesn't really matter, because if you have the self-confidence or you have the belief in yourself to say like, okay, I can make this work, even though it's not the best decision, but it's fine. I can make a turn, I can make this happen. So usually we are doing well, right? Remember like how many mistakes we have in our lives when we grow up, right? I just share with you being like almost like kick out of school, whatever, But I'm actually alive now. I'm not like really, worrying about all those things anymore. So yeah, I think the idea is that essentially when we are making a decision, we are trying to be rational and logical. But in the end, the key is always if you have the faith to believe you are making the right choice. Or even you are making the wrong choice, you can make the wrong choice to be the right one because you are in the driver's seat and you have the ability to make things happen. So I think that's the emphasis of the faith here. I can share more examples from religion side, but I want to hear from you.
So you shared a bunch of things
Yeah.
that I can more or less relate in a different scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those choices are less to do with like the immediate spending of like everyday needs
Mm-hmm.
and more of career choices and professional choices and other stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm actually talking about, the basic necessities of
Mm-hmm.
someone who is thinking a lot about their groceries bill, and then when they're out and about, they could easily go to a shop or a restaurant to just eat, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
would cost them a lot more. And
Mm-hmm.
that would be a really irresponsible thing to do for them to spend the money that they don't have.
Yeah. So the law of attraction is definitely not encouraging people to waste money or to spend the money they don't have. I think that's why I do agree with you on the on the social media part you mentioned that the second part is like a bullshit. I agree.
Okay.
Uh yeah, so I feel like the key is that what's the mentality you have when you are approaching those so-called difficulty or challenges?
Okay, my mentality is I could not spend it
Uh-huh.
and go home and
Yeah.
make food for myself.
Yeah.
And then my thinking process would be like, ugh, I have to use my time to cook the food, transit home, and if I
Mm-hmm.
don't have enough groceries, I would go buy groceries, which is in a way it's kind of like a win-win because going to buy groceries for yourself at home is fine, but it's in the moment, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
instead, like if I go out for food, then I could potentially, I don't know, stay at the cafe a little bit longer and do a bit of
Mm-hmm.
work. So it's like a trade-off of time versus am I saving money, I guess.
Yeah. How do I put it? I think it makes sense to you. So like you are thinking about like how to utilize your time wisely and also how to use your resources like the money like wisely as well. I guess the gap here, how do I put it? I don't think you are violating any of the law of attraction manifesting thing that we're trying to encourage here is that you want to prepare for your long-term goal and you want to face the challenge you have now, but you don't have to worry about this challenge will be your long-term situation. I guess what's your question? I don't see like any conflict here. So,
Well, my question is, it doesn't make sense to me to not worry about the price tag, worry about my choices, whether or not I'm gonna go home and eat or go out for food and be a little bit more irresponsible comparatively to like my future self. Because you
mm,
basically said in laws of attraction, we want to be able to practice the things that our future selves would want to have
mhm,
and to minimize the gap as much as possible, right?
yeah,
So if I want to be a mentor, I need to be able to gain more experience in XYZ. If I
yeah,
want to be an investor, I'm going to need to have XYZ type of money. If
uh-huh,
I'm going to want to, not think about price tags, blah, 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 then I also need that kind of money. But I don't have that right now. So how does the law of attraction
yeah.
apply to the current self
I see
to
what, okay,
practice the future
okay.
self?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I understand the situation now. So, I will use the same example you gave here regarding like you are facing this potentially challenge of money anxiety and stuff. So, it's basically trying to borrow the mentality from your future self. So
Okay.
it's not like your future self is a superhero and it can do anything. It's you can imagine your super self to be like a normal person, but potentially more successful and have more freedom,
More
right?
resources, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what he would do if he is facing something similar in your situation, maybe he lost his wallet in one day or he only have like some money in his pocket. he would not be wasting it anyways, right? So he would be like, if he's dealing the same situation as yours, he would be like, okay, now I need to, maybe at those challenging days, I will just start to being like resourceful and trying to be careful. But at the same time, I'm just trying to see like if I can find my wallet back, or I can build something that can free me from all those situations. So that's actually, if we apply the law of attraction, that's how logically it should be looks like. Because I think the law of attraction is advising against people to believe this money anxiety or the short term challenge is your lifelong goal or lifelong target.
Okay.
It's more like your future self will face the challenge as well, but it will have the different mentality in facing it. Because I think using yourself is not a proper example, because you actually have a lot of drive and you have a lot of faith. You are making all those efforts for the future, but at the same time, you have some struggles in the current situation. So I think it more applies to the people who feel like they're stuck or feel like they have no hope or no solution. They just feel like, okay, that's how life's thrown those challenges to me. I have no option. The only choice I have is to accept that I don't have anything to do and I just complain, and to say like it's not fair to me because I cannot waste my money, whatever, something like this. So that's more like where the law of attraction comes, and to remind people like it's not necessary to be your mission or your goal, or you are not actually hopeless. You can make proactive moves to get closer to your goals, but at the same time, you are just treating this as a challenge you may have at the moment.
Okay, so it sounds like that laws of attraction more or less applies to those people who need some sort of a tool. And I'm not saying I don't need it, like I obviously need it
Mhm.
to be able to move towards a future goal or future self that they would like to see themselves in. And realistically, to be honest. And sometimes you can get lucky, you can create luck. I truly do believe that you can create luck. You
Yeah.
can, so for myself, I guess, if I want to have my own business, if I want to have other sources of incomes, if I want to have, I don't know, more than one house in the future, then these are the current steps that I'm currently
Hmm.
doing. Like
Yeah, exactly.
my 9 to 5 job and then my side projects, these countless people that I'm meeting that could potentially, these connections are really, really meaningful to me. So, like, they might be very helpful to me in the future and vice versa.
Hmm.
And some sort of like mentor network that I might have. So, like, these are the foundations that I'm currently building right now
Hmm.
to how my future self can kind of like thank my past self in a way. But like for those that don't
Hmm.
have these type of like
Hmm.
drive, visions, motivations, then like this is kind of like what they need is what you're saying. So
Yeah.
this type of situation of like me struggling to whether or not I should buy this 5 pound 2 piece pak choi
Yeah.
is not really the application here, is what you're saying.
It would be part of the process. So you potentially will just forget in 5 years, and the law of attraction will suggest you to not pay attention to it, or to not to pay too much significance on those things. So like,
By not paying attention, you mean like don't sweat about it too much,
yeah,
but
yeah.
also make smart decisions.
Exactly. You just trying to be practical and trying to be like resourceful to overcome those challenges, and you just want to believe the future will be better. So,
So smart decisions meaning like okay, like you could go out for this $100 meal that is sitting right in front of you, or you can go home and make your chicken noodle soup
hmm,
that will feed you just the same and
hmm,
have the similar protein, probably much better value, more healthier
yeah,
than what you're eating at the restaurant, then like the smarter, healthier choice at your current state of financial situation is to go home
hmm,
and to cook for yourself, go buy your groceries and do that stuff. Because right now, you're as poor as a peasant, right? So
Hmm.
you need to do that, and you can't spend like you have a grudge against money. Like you can't
Yeah,
spend like
yeah.
that. So until we get to that stage, then these are like the things that you don't really sweat about. So you need to think
Hmm.
about, okay, I think I understand now. So you need to be able to, wow,
Yeah,
that
you
took a
got it.
long time.
You got it.
No, because it doesn't make sense to me in at first because I was like, well, how do you spend this
Hmm.
money
Hmm.
right now when you don't have it?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's also about like you need to be able to apply these decisions in a smart way and
Hmm.
make applicable financial decisions and purchases right now, so then it makes your future self makes like it moves
Hmm.
towards your future self a little bit more.
Exactly. So I think the essential for, at least for me, the power of law of attraction is to help you to establish some sort of faith or drive for you to have certain actions aiming for the long term, even though you
Hmm.
see no light or if you're in this hopeless situation. I think it's meaningful for many people because I actually talked to someone who is a professional helper that been helping many people in need. They heard like many personal stories that's not shareable to other people. So one thing he told me is that, do you know why sometimes the religious people or the people have faith tends to have a happier life or they will have a better mentality? Is
Oh, okay.
what he is saying is that because when they are facing the challenges or they are facing the storm or the difficulties in life,
Hmm.
they will tell themselves, it's God's will. It's one of the chapters of my life. So the God has the plan. I don't have to speculate what's the intention, and I don't have to worry about if this is the ending. I just need to understand it's one chapter of my life, and I'm just experiencing this thing. Maybe God has its intention to let me suffer or put me through this, so I don't have to worry too much. So I don't know if that's true or not, right? It's not never verifiable or whatever, but it's a mental power that helped them to go through those challenges. And for most of the time, they have better results in the end. So I think it's some sort of alignment. That's why I believe the law of attraction is more about the faith or mental power you have as a person.
A little light bulb just kind of went off on my head when you talked about faith and this chapter of life that quote unquote God is giving you or whatever. But like,
Hmm.
I think this kind of relates to if you're having this challenge in life right now, you are supposed to go through it
Yeah.
in a sense
Hmm.
to learn lessons from it,
Hmm.
whatever lessons you're supposed to learn, and apply the feedback that this lesson has given you.
Hmm.
And eventually, this challenge and this storm is going to pass,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
in another words. But in religion wise, it's like God is here to give you this challenge and like blah
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. So like
Yeah.
this third being, like no, when I went to church and when people say that to me, I was like, so this fucking person just like decided to give this thing to me, like, and this I was like, what the fuck? Like, how does this make sense? Okay, like, I think in this context, it makes more sense to me now because,
Uh-huh.
yeah, like, sometimes life has challenges and you're supposed to go through them and you're supposed to learn from them,
Hmm.
and they don't necessarily stop, right? And
Hmm.
until you've learned your lesson and learn how to apply and help yourself and save yourself from those repeated challenges that you potentially face,
Yeah.
whatever.
I think the most harmful situation is that you totally give up and you totally believe that's hopeless and you stop acting because you
Mm,
cannot make any actions without believing in certain things, right?
So it's
You
kind so in a sense it's like, oh, I don't believe that I can find a job anymore. So like if you
Yeah.
stop applying to jobs,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
you're never gonna get a fucking job.
Yeah.
So in a way, like if you want to win the fucking lottery,
Yeah.
go buy the fucking lottery ticket. You're never gonna win if you're not gonna buy one. Period.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that explains the definition of law of attraction. If you
Yeah.
have positive thoughts, you attract positive results. If you have
With
negative
action.
thoughts,
With
yeah,
action.
yeah. And if you have negative thoughts, you
Mhm.
basically attracts the bad results.
I disagree. You can have negative thoughts about your results of the positive action that you had. Like
Hmm.
just because you had that job rejection or interview
Hmm.
rejection, like
Hmm.
what are you gonna be like? Oh, that was great. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not what's going on up here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh man, that sucks. Like that is more of like the realistic negative reaction.
Hmm.
And then, I mean, as long as you switch it to an application to apply it from the feedback, if you get the feedback, to your next interview, to your next job application, then as long as that action is continuously improved, I still think you can have a little bit of a negative thought towards it though.
Of course, of
Um,
course. So
yeah.
I do believe no one can be purely positive, right? But as long as you are having those negative, reactions, and then you just keep doing the things that's positive. I think it's still
Hmm.
like makes sense because in the end, you're still like making the moves and trying to make things better. I think that's your deepest intention is still want to make things better. So that's actually positive.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And I also have a personal reflection here because I just mentioned to you earlier regarding
Hmm.
like why I think self-pity is so toxic.
Okay.
It's actually one of the quotes from Charlie Munger, and he actually have a very funny story regarding he has some like friend who has those printed cards. So every
Hmm.
time someone complained to that person,
Yeah.
and he heard like people complaining or just saying like they're doing like self-pity actions, and he
Hmm.
would deliver this card to the person, and on the card it says, oh, I'm sorry, I know you are the unluckiest person in the world, I feel so sorry for you. So basically he just ending all those conversation with this card.
Okay.
It's
Interesting.
essentially the logic behind this or the moral behind this is that Charlie Munger or his friend believes that being self-pity is not going to help you. It would definitely help you to complain to other people to relieve your emotions and for you to feel like you are wronged, people done something wrong to you and you are not responsible. But
Okay.
if you are in this pattern or you are addicted to this pattern,
Hmm.
you are essentially giving up your ownership to other people. Because you feel like
Mm.
everything happened in my life is
It's
other
not my
people's
fault.
faults.
It's not
Yeah.
my fault. It's your fault. It's like shifting the blame and
Yeah.
shifting the responsibility.
Shifting the
Okay.
blame, shifting the responsibility, pointing the fingers, and essentially giving up your own ownership and initiatives in those situations.
Okay.
So that's where I think the law of attraction comes, is that to pointing out that essentially it's your decision, right? It's your like motivation and your actions leading you to the results. It's not about like how many people are doing wrong to you or how life is being unfair to you.
Hmm.
It's just like you cannot expect everything will be perfectly fine. Like we are living in this rainbow sunshine world with all the unicorn singing and handling flowers to you. I think that's not how everyone lives. And that's not how this world is working. So in the end, you have to believe in something. You have to believe in certain things before you start to have actions. And the law of attraction is suggesting, or as many of the philosopher or any like many of the people are suggesting,
Hmm.
maybe the best option is to fucking trust yourself, right? If you have to trust something, why don't you fucking trust yourself?
It's really hard to practice trusting yourself because sometimes evidence doesn't allow you to believe
Mm-hmm.
in yourself in certain
Mm-hmm.
aspects, but I think that a lot of people more or less do give up before they see any results, right?
Or lights. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think, you know what, I can definitely relate to this. I think it's just, I don't know. If I didn't give up some aspects of the decisions that I made, for example, like my previous job, right after I got out of my bachelor's degree, I tried to apply for IT jobs and I just couldn't get in whatsoever. So I basically gave up pretty quickly
Mm-hmm.
and went into personal training because I knew that I had the confidence to do it, and I knew that I was going to be able to work for a company pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked on that and then I got it. It was exactly the way that I thought I was going to be on this plan B.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's because I had plan B, my plan A didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So don't have
Yeah.
plan Bs, guys.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that, and I totally agree that I think many people have this myth regarding law of attraction is encouraging you to believe you can do everything or anything you wish for. It's like supporting your delusions or your wishful thinkings. It's actually not
Mhm.
the case. It's more like,
It should. It could. It could.
yeah, it could, like, you can try as long as you believe that.
Mm.
And if in the end you just realize that's not the case, you can tell yourself, I have done my best in trying. Maybe that's not my strength. And maybe that's not my luck. I can switch to something like more suitable for me. That may be
Yeah.
the case. So maybe this project will not work out. And maybe our
Fuck you.
other.
Yes, it will.
Well, okay. And maybe like other things will not, you can never predict the future.
Hmm.
But it's just saying like if you don't see yourself to be successful, then it's probably not going to happen anyways.
Yeah, I think so. But at the same time, it's also very crippling to be like, oh, I just don't know. It's not that I don't know where to start, but I think like the start is not as easy or as fast or as, yeah.
As you
It's
hoped,
not
right?
it's not that,
Yeah.
because in reality
Yeah.
it takes time
Mm-hmm.
for these things to, for you to master whatever profession you want to be in, for whatever career you want to make a lot of money in. Even
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be an investor, you need to be able to know how to invest
Yeah.
and learn how to make money from that, right? Yes,
Yeah.
you can have very different starts in life. You could have $100 million from your family to help you do your investments, but by all means, if you don't know how to invest, you could lose all that money,
Yeah.
right?
It takes faith. I would take that example. Like my recent investment actually starts like 3 years ago
Yeah.
when the market crashes.
Hmm. That's what
So
you should
Eric,
have bought.
yeah, so that's what I did. But
Okay.
in that situation, naturally you cannot enter at the lowest point, right? So
No.
it's very unlikely you enter the market when it's just magically stops dipping and you just reverse the next day you bought.
Yeah.
So naturally when I'm starting buying, like keeps going down and
Hmm.
for many days. And I kept buying, but I lose buying power eventually, right? So it's not like all my investment at the lowest point or whatever. So it's a terrifying process. It's a very
Yeah.
terrifying process. So like you kind of need to have certain faith to believe that it will reverse eventually. You kind of like need to find all the, when you are trying to find those empirical evidence, you always can find the good example and bad example. So it never have like it's not a mathematician like you have the factors in one side of the equation and you have an answer on the other hand. It's never like
Hmm.
this. It's more like, okay, so I have two side of story. I need to make a decision if I want to believe or not, right? That's always like this. I think most of the life decision are like this. It's like you see this path is working for some people, but may not be working for other people in different situations. So it takes faith to believe. It takes courage. Maybe that's luck. I would not deny it. Maybe I'm just being lucky to choose to believe it will reverse.
Yeah,
But
believe
in
all
the
you
end,
want, but you need to also action. Like that is literally the most important thing. If you don't action
yeah,
it's still like faith doesn't make sense at all.
yeah. Actually, my belief is that if you don't action, you actually don't believe.
Period. Okay, we can end there.
Yeah.
Seriously, that was good. Right there. Right there, right there. Write that down. Put it
Amazing,
in the mug.
amazing. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning into Pondering Pandas. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, comment, and give us a good review if you can. Please be kind. This would really help us grow. We appreciate you pondering with us today. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.